Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 1 of Hustle and Honey, which is the YouTube channel that's all about the history of sugar babies and gold diggers in America from 1800s to present day. So I just wanted to jump right into it and start with where people most hear the word gold digger, right? It's usually a negative term. You might talk about somebody, oh, she's just gold digger because she is going after that old, ugly man. It's obviously only for his money. And then you'll hear, oh, she only got that job because she slept her way to the top, right? These are the types of things that we say about these transactional relationships. And probably most of you know the song by Kanye West. It was on the #1 Billboard for like 100 for 10 weeks straight back in 2005. And in that song, Kanye West, he does all the grievances, right? Handbags for these women, dinners out, paying for her plastic surgery, child support. He tells the men, get prenups, get prenups. And he warns all his friends. But then, right in the middle of the song, right in the middle of all this outrage, he stops and says, I don't care what none of you say. I still love her. Which is, and I say this with affection, hilarious, right? Because the whole song's a complaint. These women are terrible. They're mercenary. They're coming after us, guys. Be careful. Caution, cautionary tale. But he can't quit her. He still loves her. And nobody in the song calls him an idiot for that. Nobody calls him weak. Nobody labels him. But the women get the slur, right? The gold digger, the mercenary, the, whatever, predatory woman, all that. The women get the complaint and the slur. The men get to be generous and devoted. So that's the double standard, right? That's at the heart of everything that I'm going to explore on this channel and in the book that I'm writing. So check that out on Amazon soon. I don't know when you're watching this, so it might already be out. Wendy Myers, look me up on Amazon. But if not, if it's still not there, then keep shooting me your comments because I'm still developing the book and it's going to be interesting. So anyway, back to the double standard. Women who seek financial advantage through relationships get called gold diggers, which is used as a slur, an insult, a way of dismissing them as shallow, manipulative, all that type of thing. The men who do the financial support, they're just generous. They're successful. They're sharing their wealth, maybe a little lovesick, that's all, but never judged in the same way as the women are. And here's the question that I want you to sit with. If a wealthy man actively seeks a younger and beautiful woman, and the young and beautiful woman actively seeks the wealthy man, what's the problem? Who is using whom here? Both people are getting something out of this equation. They both are entering this arrangement willingly. Who's the predator? Who's the mercenary? Who's the shallow one? Who's manipulative? You tell me, right? We're going to get in more into it because there is a spectrum here. Everything's on a spectrum now, and gold digging is right there too. You can't just say it's all bad, right? It's much more nuanced. So to really get into this whole thing, this double standard, we're going to go back, way back, not just a few decades, but back to the early 1900s. Because gold digger is not an ancient term, even though it's been around, the concept of transactional relationships has been around forever. It was coined in a very specific moment, right? Because before that, when relationships were transactional, they were very heavy handed, right? Your dad gave your hand in marriage. There was a dowry. You were bringing lands together. Your families were involved. You may not have had even any say with it, the man or the woman, right? There was much more financial arrangements in place that were outside of this. But something interesting started happening in the early 1900s. The flappers. Women started flaunting their sexuality more. I won't say flaunting. They were exploring it. They were having more fun with it. They were getting more freedoms. They got the right to vote. So this created kind of a perfect storm for marriages and relationships that were transactional to really change and shift into a more egalitarian way, right? Oh, I'm an old ugly man, I have a lot of money, I want a young woman. Young woman saying, I don't have any money, but that guy does, so let me go over there, right? So it turned into this perfect storm for when this could occur. So picture this, New York City, sometime around 1918, 1919. There's a playwright named Avery Hopwood, who was a very successful guy, sitting in the Ritz-Carlton lobby talking to his friend, who is a chorus girl, Kay Laurel. They're just having a casual conversation there at the Ritz. And she was one of the Ziegfeld Follies girls. Now, if you've ever heard of that, Ziegfeld Follies were the biggest thing in the day, biggest Broadway shows of the early 20th century, elaborate, glorious, glamorous, insanely expensive. And Florence Ziegfeld, the guy who created this, actually, it was his wife's idea, but he ran with it and he gets all the glory, per usual. Anyway, it's her idea because she saw the Follies being done in France and they decided to bring it to Broadway. So anyway, he was famous above one thing above all else, which was to find the most beautiful women in America and throw them on the stage. His obituary, even in the New York Times, literally described him as the glorifier of the American girl. He was looking for beauty, looking for beautiful women, throwing them out on the stage. So Kay was one of these beautiful chorus women out there on the stage. But she had this friend who was Avery Hopwood, the playwright, and they're sitting there talking, just in the lobby. So she happens to see one of her friends, another chorus girl, coming in the lobby, and she's like, "Oh, hey, gold digger," said very much with affection, "Hey, gold digger," and like we would say, "Hey, girl," "Hey, boss," "Hey, bitch," whatever. We would like call out in, some sort of familiarity. "Hey, gold digger." And Avery Hopwood's like, "What's that all about?" And she said something that I have thought about ever since I first read it. So let me read it to you. She said to Avery, "You men capitalize on your brains or your business ability or your legal minds or whatever darn thing you happen to have. So why shouldn't we girls capitalize on what nature has given us, our good looks and our ability to please and entertain men? You men don't give something for nothing. So why should we?" Interesting. Why were women told, why do men think women should just sit around and please them all day and be beautiful and give them conversation and the men don't have to do anything in return? Come on now. You know how this works. Anyway, Avery Hopwood was immediately struck by this. He's like, wow, yeah. So he wrote it down. And a year later, he wrote a play called The Gold Diggers. And the term entered the American lexicon for the first time. In fact, the people who were backing his show on Broadway were like afraid everybody would think it was just a show about digging gold, like literally mining. So they had to do a lot of things with advertising to get people to realize this was going to be a pretty funny comedy. So the women in the play are strategic and completely unapologetic about it. So they might come across as a little calculating. It is a comedy, right? And the audience found it hilarious and also scandalous in equal measure. So it started causing a little buzz there about what was going on with women in the early part of the century, which was, they were getting more freedoms, but men were still coming after them with gifts and preying on these poor working class women. So there was a little bit of tension there. And that's what kind of created the perfect storm for this gold digger word and the archetype to be born through the stage. So anyway, before we go any further, I want to be really clear about something, because this is a distinction that my book is built on, and I think it matters, okay? And some of you are going to disagree, and you can throw me a comment. I don't care. We'll talk about it. But this is the distinction I want to make, and that is that gold digging is not prostitution, okay? I know they get conflated all the time, but they're fundamentally different things. And here's the simplest way I can put it. Prostitution is a job, okay? Sexual service is sold for cash, typically on transactional basis, ongoing. It is work. And like all work, there's problems there. It could definitely be coerced, and we know about that. There's human trafficking, and there's a lot of coercion and drug abuse there. And it can also be chosen to do that work. But structurally, it's the explicit exchange of sex for money. Okay? That's prostitution. Gold digging is a life strategy. Okay? A woman or a man, men can be gold diggers too. I'm concentrating on women. I probably should have said that from the beginning with Honey and Hustle, but it can go both ways, right? A man can be a gold digger too. Anyway, the gold digger, well, for the sake of this, seeks out companions who are going to provide financial support, gifts, experiences, mentorship, stability. The relationship is not purely sexual. It may include sex. It usually does because we're humans and we like it, right? But that's not what it is specifically about. Okay, it's not purely transactional. It exists somewhere in between, right? I talked about the spectrum. It can be casual, a few nice dinners, someone covering your rent for a while, getting you a nice little handbag, new jacket. That's what it could be. Or it can turn long term, turns into marriage. And you can probably think off the top of your head right now of people, and we're going to go talk about them through this series of people you're like, she married well. She did it. She got that man. She got that ring. So it can become a partnership or a life built around someone's wealth. And crucially, it is chosen. Okay. It is not coerced. It is chosen. It is a strategy that women can and do employ. Okay. It's not like prostitution, which is a job, and a lot of times a job that's forced upon women out of dire necessity, drug abuse, coercion. Okay. So back to gold digging on the stage. A lot of you probably have heard of the movie Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, and I talk a lot about this in the book about the origins of the writer on that. It's really kind of fascinating. But Marilyn Monroe played the titular role there in the show, in the movie in 1953, and she has a line that I think is kind of a good articulation of this strategy. She said, "Don't you know that a man being rich is like a woman being pretty? You wouldn't marry a girl just because she's pretty. Oh my goodness, doesn't it help?" And the same thing for women, right? I'm sure women out there, you've been attracted to men who are poor, and you've been attracted to men who are rich. And you might choose the one that's rich just because there's a little bit more. Doesn't that help? Does that money help? Absolutely, it helps. Nobody pretends that money isn't a factor in attraction. And honestly, in your life strategy, money has always got to be a part of something to get the things you want out of life. Unfortunately, unless you can totally live off the grid, amazing. If you live off the grid, tell me. You probably can't tell me because this is on YouTube and you don't have it. But if you see it somewhere, throw me a comment if you don't need money. But women are strategic about it. They're called names, right? They're called names that, like whore, that they try to put with prostitution, and all sorts of slurs. But men, when they seek out beautiful women, they're the man, right? They're lucky. They got money. They can get who they want. That's a good thing. So again, back to that double standard. So I did want to say, because I've been talking about throwing out gold digger and sugar baby like kind of interchangeably. Modern parlance, I think we've gotten away from gold digger, and you'll see a lot on Instagram, on your phones and stuff, people on TikTok talking about sugar babies, sugar daddies. And it's always interesting to me because people are like, that's what we call them now. My daughter said, "Mommy, they're not gold diggers anymore, they're sugar babies." Well, interestingly enough, the term sugar baby, sugar daddy was coined also about the same time as gold diggers by a very fascinating woman, Alma Spreckles, and I will be talking about her. Oh my God, I got a chapter on her in the book. She was amazing and did a lot of great things with the wealth that she got. But in any case, she married a man who was like 25 years older than her, who happened to run the Spreckles Sugar Company, right? So she called him her sugar daddy, and she became the sugar baby. Okay, I'm not making that up. 1919, this actually happened, and we're going to do a full episode on her later because she was pretty fascinating. So I know what you're thinking. You're like, "Wendy, this is history. This is old. Things are different now. Women have careers. They have financial independence. They're better educated than ever. Why would anyone need to pursue a wealthy man today in 2026?" So interestingly enough, I've done some research on this and some surveys. I've surveyed a ton of people ranging from age 18 to over 65 about their views on gold digging and transactional relationship. What I found is that over 30% see it as relevant today, just as relevant today as it was in the early part of the 1900s. So, and the top reasons people say that women are still into it, they talk about the luxury lifestyle that's out there on TikTok and all these things where people are like, "I want that, lifestyle. How can I get it?" So that becomes transactional relationships. And also because women still are paid less than men and still seek financial security. They may have children as single women, where partners have taken off and they have things that they have to take care of in life. So it's still a very relevant strategy, and I have the numbers to prove that. But if you want to say something about it, throw it in the comments. Would love to hear that. Um, so here's the thing. I grew up in the trailer park. I worked hard. I got educated. I built my own career as a businesswoman and an entrepreneur. So when I had first heard things, this came out of my daughter's mouth. She's like, "Hey, mommy, how do I get men to buy me things?" I'm like, "What? Go get a job and make your own money and buy your own things. Don't be relying on a man for anything." But she got me thinking about it, and I went out and looked out on Amazon. Sure enough, there were some books about how to get men to buy things for you, and they were free, so we downloaded them. There was a hoot to read them, and she's like, "Oh yeah, that see where that would work," and da da da. And I was like, "Okay, this is odd." So I need to delve into this culture, because why do we, as a culture, only respect women who earn everything themselves? Why isn't there respect for being strategic and using the tools that are available to you at your moment? Who looks at this uneven world and says, "Okay, fine, we'll play by your rules. Now I'll really try hard to break that glass ceiling, even though I know you're going to give the promotion to that guy," right? That's what we're dealing with. So now, and this is, I want to say this, and this is important. I'm not saying that gold digging is without complications. It has real costs, right? There sometimes is coercion. In my book, you'll see some of the gold diggers that came along were maybe pushed in it by their mothers, by their families who needed financial assistance. It's not all a bed of roses, right? And to stay in a relationship, a sugar relationship, a lot of times the women have to maintain a specific look. They have to diet. They have to exercise. There's plastic surgery. They have to constantly be getting, groomed and their hair done, their nails done, all that, because there's a younger, prettier woman waiting to take their place, right? So they're very aware of that. Without a legal contract, that support can disappear overnight, right? There's instability. There is some power imbalance. And we're going to talk about all of this through this YouTube channel. But here's kind of what I want to take away just from this first episode. The women who employ this strategy are not shallow and dumb, okay? A lot of times they're not even desperate. They're making a calculated decision in this economic landscape where we're still not equal, to try to get ahead, to try to get mentoring, to try to get career advice, to try to get some nice dinners out, to try to get vacations, to try to get clothing that they can wear to help themselves in their career. And the least we can do as fellow humans and fellow women is to not judge them and to try to understand their decisions and what is behind all this, okay? So, just to bring it all home, the word gold digger started as a compliment. Just like we'd say, "Oh, she's a girl boss. She's out there working it. Look at her. She's fantastic." That's how that originated. And it was aspirational. It was empowering, because at that time, in 1919, women certainly weren't in boardrooms like they were today. They weren't college professors. They weren't doctors. They weren't lawyers. They were on the stage because they were beautiful. And they had to use that tool to break out of that. And they're kind of the forerunners of why we can do other things today. So it only became a slur when women got power. They started voting, right? They were working. They were making their own choices about who to love and who to leave and what they wanted out of a relationship, right? And the moment women took control of this strategy, that's when patriarchy came in and did the shutdown, like well, this is immoral. You're a hoe. You're bad. You're dirty. All those things that we say about women who do this type of transactional relationship, and that we still say today, right? So that should tell you everything you need to know about this. But next week, I'm going to delve more into this topic. I'm going to probably dig a little more about that whole prostitution thing that I alluded to in here. So yeah, throw me a comment. Tell me what you think about gold diggers and sugar babies in today's society or in history's past. I would love to hear it. Read all the comments. And we're going to keep going on this journey with Honey and Hustle that is just fascinating and interesting to me, and I hope interesting to you. So thank you, and I hope you have a great day. Subscribe.